run slow to run fast. That's a great parallel to business. You can't just do everything at once. You can't go full steam ahead. You have to learn the ropes and the basics of it. And that's going to really help you in those race days or those investment meetings or when you're scaling up the business. I honestly didn't think I'd be able to get down to that 142 again. I'm 10 years older. Just in my head, I thought you can only PB if you're younger, and like just naturally you think I'm not going to be able to do that again. At the start of something, when you're taking something on new, whether it's running or you're starting a business, those are the hardest points. My name's Joe Moruzzi. I'm the founder of Pleese, which is a dessert brand, and my background is I was a painter and decorator by trade. Never been to a cake decorating school or catering college or anything like that, but just had this huge passion for being creative with food. My dad made a cheesecake one day. Sunday dinner, I then proceeded to make a cheesecake, and it continued from there, making them for friends and family. And it got to a point in early 2017 where I thought I could make some extra money, a bit of a side hustle on the side of my painting and decorating business. And I set up an Instagram account called Pleese Cakes. So the name has changed, and it kind of went viral overnight. And 7 years later, we're in 1,200 retail stores across the UK. But in between that starting point and now, there's been a lot has happened. So yeah, that's kind of a really brief outline.
From your painting and decorating background, if you were told that bloke who was doing that 12 years down the line you were going to be here doing this, what do you reckon he'd say?
No chance. I was 29 when I set up this account, so I wasn't young. I've always been not entrepreneurial but ambitious. I've never thought about sort of going into an industry I'd never been in. Painting was an industry that I fell into from something that I was doing previously as well. So it was unexpected, but I think the process of being chucked in the deep end right at the start and really having that naivety allowed me to start the business. I think if I had known the industry or known how hard it was to start a business and grow a brand and manage people and enter retails, I probably wouldn't have done it. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs who have built big businesses and brands would say the same thing. It's a really hard process to go through. There's been many challenging days and years to get to this point. So yeah, I wouldn't have predicted this, but I've loved the journey, and there's been some incredibly exciting moments. There's been some amazing times. I've met some incredible people that I've learned so much of. So it's been a process that I've welcomed, and it's been fun. It's been definitely fun.
At 29, starting the page, was there any sort of goal in mind at all, or was it just sort of like, just fancy starting this page on a whim, like you say, but a naivety, or was there any kind of future outlook?
No, not really. So I was making cheesecakes. So cheesecakes as a dessert, no baked cheesecake specifically, was quite easy entry into the baking world because you don't have to be too precise with the measurements. There's no baking involved actually. So you just kind of like combine combinations, bit of cream cheese. And I was overloading these cheesecakes with like loads of chocolate. They were very Instagrammable and very indulgent. And so I thought I could sell maybe 4 or 5 of these a month and I'd make a few £100 a month. It'd just be a little bit of extra income to support my living, you know. And I didn't have a business plan. I had no supply chain, no recipes, no facilities to operate out of. So I was making these cheesecakes out of my parents' kitchen. And basically in early 2017, one of my friends who's got a fairly large following on social media shared my page. You know, you can only get contact with me through Instagram and via DMs. So I was like, just order what you want, create your own cheesecake, and I'll try and make it for you. There was no website, there was no email account, nothing in place. And he shared it to his page organically. I didn't ask him to do it. And it went viral. We had like tens of thousands of followers in 24-hour period. So I instantly saw an opportunity for this as a business, and I acted upon it. And I got someone to set up a website and an email account, and I started taking orders, and I found a facility to operate out of, and I got in contact with and the ex-production manager of Greg's Bakery, who was managing 200 people and understood processes and procedures and health and safety and loads of different things that I learned off. And it kind of went from there. So there was no plans to build it at the start, but then I got the bug, and I was like, this is an opportunity, and for me, social media was the tool to grow this. You know, back 7 years ago, you could grow organically on social media. It was much easier, whereas today, each platform goes through this evolution of like very organic, authentic, easy reach. You can grow very quickly on these platforms, and then they start monetizing it, and you need to pay ads, and you need to get seen on the main feed or the FYP or what platform you're on, and they become harder and harder to grow on. Luckily, we established ourselves fairly early on each platform that we've done, and it's been a great tool and leveraged us as a brand to build it. You know, so it's exciting. It's been hard, but yeah, no plans to be here today, really.
When you're deep in that sort of building stage of a business, I would imagine everything kind of takes a back burner. How was it kind of balancing, you know, family, like you say, health and fitness, like other goals outside of business? How did you manage to balance that? Or was it kind of, you know, a 10-year period of maybe everything taking a back step before they coming back?
Yeah, so I've been doing this 7 years, and it's changed. The business has changed massively over the last 7 years. You're not going to have much time for much. There's sacrifices, okay? And so those first couple of years, I was working 22 hours a day sometimes, you know, getting in starting at 1 o'clock in the morning, getting home at 10 o'clock. And for months on end, and I'd work 7 days a week, and my fitness and my training would take a back seat. And I think it was short-term pain for long-term gain. That was kind of my process. It was never, I'm not going back to fitness, but yes, it was those sacrifices that I had to make at the start to grow the business. But on the flip side, when you're in those really sort of challenging, dark, intense years, months of working so much, it really does affect your mental health, and it did affect my mental health massively. Your head is just all over the place. You've got no time to breathe, no time to think, and training and fitness and running and exercise as a whole is free medicine, right? It helps so much me personally with my mental, physical self, and I think whatever industry you're in, if you're starting a business, if you're struggling mentally, exercise is always the answer, right? It's always going to be the place people should turn to first to try and help. So yeah, dark days at the start, but fitness helped.
I really like the post you put up post your half marathon PB at Battersea Park, kind of saying you're not going to push running on anybody. However, it's kind of like it's something that's helped you, and you've already mentioned authenticity, and that did feel super authentic. That was just like, look, like I've had hard times in the past. This has helped me. Maybe it could help you, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not a fitness influencer or a trained professional, but it really does help. And so I think sharing my experiences and what I feel and experience through exercise and running is valuable. You know, I think that if I can help one person out there who's probably going through something similar. I've just lost my dad recently. Really challenging times on top of running a business. You know, like the stresses of life and having a small kid as well is intense. It's overwhelming, and when I go out running, it's a space to just clear your head. It's almost meditation. So yeah, I share, if I can share it and just get that message, that just sort of unintrusive message across to them, you know, just go and run for a little bit or go and exercise, get active, then I've won. You know, it's a win-win.
And like you say, you've got that kind of really strong community as well on social, which they listen to you, they listen to your voice, they listen to the brand's voice. The brilliant thing about running, I always find, is like it doesn't discriminate, does it? Like, however you're feeling, like you say, I'm sorry to hear about your dad, mate, but like hit that happening, get out on the road, it'll help you clear your head. You know, having a young kid, maybe things happening with that, just getting your head round the day-to-day life of having a young kid, get out on the road. That'll help with that. It helps with everything.
You don't have to be. It's not a technical sport, right? And it's low investment. You need a good pair of running shoes, and that's it, really. You know, just need to start. You need to start is the key thing, and so that's something what I live by, even in business. You know, just get started. Take those first few steps, and you really do get into it, and you're not necessarily going to be the fittest at the start, and it's going to be challenging, it's going to be tough, but once you get into it a little bit and you start getting fitter and it gets more enjoyable, you start becoming a little bit more obsessed with it, and it grows, it grows on you like anything. But it's easy entry, and I think that's the brilliant thing about running is it's easy entry. You don't have to have loads of equipment and big investments or anything like that. So yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
There are a lot of parallels to draw between kind of business and running as well, particularly kind of like the building side of things, because like you say, just put a pair of trainers on, get started and go. And maybe if you have an idea to start a small business, and yes, not all small businesses work, not all ideas work, but if you try and you're consistent at trying, then at some point it will grow. And that's the same with running. If you try and you're consistent with trying, at some point you kind of get better. Are those parallels that you can see as well?
Yeah, and one other thing is, I don't run professionally, or I'm not trained by anyone professional, but you pick up nuggets, don't you, here and there?
Yeah, of course.
And one sort of tactic is run slow to run fast. Is that kind of thing you like? Don't try and go out every time and get your heart screaming. Is run slow, run at a steady pace, and that's going to help you in those race days and the pace. And that's similar. That's a great parallel to business. You can't just do everything at once. You can't go full steam ahead. You have to learn the ropes and the basics of it, and that's going to really help you in those race days or those investment meetings or when you're scaling up the business. So it's very, very similar. And I think I've noticed such a difference in my running when I do these slower runs. They're like this, a nice pace, and I just put the miles in, and I run for a couple of hours, and then on a race day, you feel it's weird. It just you can run so much faster. Yeah. So that parallel is really key. Really,
and key. That's when running becomes enjoyable as well. It's not just like the slowing down part of things because physiologically that helps. It's the slowing down part of things because that is when you can think about other things. You can clear your head. You can kind of have those thoughts that maybe you wouldn't have sitting at home watching TV. I think sometimes people think they need to go out and absolutely hammer themselves, and they're like, I don't know what anybody's talking about this thing about clearing your head. I'm just in pain all the time.
Yeah.
95% of the time, that's probably just because you're running too hard.
Yeah, your heart screaming. You're thinking about is the pain, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and they say it's an art, running slow. I train with
difficult.
He does a lot of Ironmans, and yeah, it's interesting because you always just historically when I went out running, like you say, I try and really push it and give it a proper nudge, and like my heart's like pounding, and like got back, and you're like, I didn't really enjoy that. It was horrible. So really different approach, and these sort of little bits of knowledge are really key.
Kind of back to your business a little bit, and I mean, if we're doing similarities and analogies here, finishing a race, seeing that medal, getting that around your neck, that's got to be kind of similar to seeing product on the shelf, right? You're seeing things on the shelf for the first time. That's kind of like the end goal of designing a product, manufacturing a product, getting it on the shelves. What is that like when you've had kind of this idea from the start and then it's there in a supermarket or on a shelf or with a consumer?
I think anything in life is not about the end goal. It's more of the journey and progressing at something and having a sense of forward motion, moving forward with something. So a business is similar, like we've gone from very handmade products and at very small scale and selling direct to consumer, and it's been very challenging. And then you grow a little bit and you introduce a new product, and then you get a new listing, and we got listed in Amazon and Selfridges, and we bring out a book, and there's this sense of progression and something that's building, and you're learning, you're gaining more knowledge here, and you're meeting new people, and then you're getting better at a certain skill. And it's exactly the same with running. When you see a bit of progression and you feel a bit better and you feel fitter and your heart rate's below a certain BPM per minute at a certain pace, and you think, oh, okay, I'm getting fit. I know I'm getting fitter, so I'm progressing. And then you start getting PBs in race days, and it keeps you going. There's not like I'm not a professional athlete. I'm not going to be competing with professional athletes, but as long as I'm getting that sense of progression, I get fulfillment, and that's exactly the same with business. So, and I think that's for anyone, like you say, it doesn't matter who you are, what level you're at with running. You can always feel that sense of progression, because everyone's going to be at their own stage. So yeah, progression, forward motion is really key.
And you're competing with yourself at the end of the day, which again was drawing lots of comparisons with business here. I imagine like it's sometimes nice to have a business that you look to and think at some point in the future, maybe there would be, maybe we'd like to have that sort of business model. Like, and there is in running, there are people that you look to and you think, oh, I'd like to do that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, it is just about competing with yourself and doing what you can do to make yourself better day to day.
Exactly that. And I think it's always good to have goals and like end goals and something to work towards and visions. But it's about all about the process as well, I think. Like that process of day to day, day in, day out, and just seeing little bits of getting better at something is really, really fulfilling. I think more fulfilling than a lot of things. And you hear a lot of stories that people get to, especially in business, they get to a point where they sell the business and they're kind of really unhappy and depressed. They might have some money in the bank, but then they've got no purpose and they're just kind of a bit lost. And I think that's like that with anything. You need a bit of purpose in life, purpose in what you're doing. And so I think it's a journey rather than just an end goal.
Do you have goals, mate? Do you look forward to business goals? Do you look forward to fitness goals, running goals? Is that something you have, or is it just that journey for you and there isn't really, I mean, not being too cheesy, but there isn't really a destination?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm highly competitive and highly ambitious, so everything I do is always fairly big. I always try and look at in terms of my business, I'd love to grow it into a global brand that's loved by many around the world, and that is, it's rare for anyone to achieve that. There's huge brands out there, but they're backed by massive investment firms and they've got a ton of money and resources. And to get to that stage is very hard and the journey is long. But similarly to running, again, it's like, yes, I want to get a better time. I want to try and do a 1:30 or a sub 1:30 half marathon. And then so there's as I achieve one thing, I'm on to the next thing. And so, yeah, there's always goals, always ambition to do better. I think that's the human instinct as well. You're kind of never satisfied. You always want a little bit more. Once you get something, okay, what's the next thing? And so, yeah, that's similar to me as well.
I've talked to quite a few professional athletes over doing this podcast and, having other conversations as well. And one of the things I sometimes ask them is like, do you always see yourself running? Because like when you're at the tip of the spear, sometimes you think maybe, when you get older, when Father Time touches you on the shoulder and says, maybe you're not quite at the tip of the spear anymore, come down a little bit. Is that going to be difficult? Like, is that going to be a hard thing to accept? But most of them, I'd say 99% of people say, I will always run. Like, I will always do something to kind of keep me going because it's the thing I love. And it feels like you're probably the same with business a little bit. You'll always want to do something. You'll always want to keep pushing in some way or some shape or form.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, again, it goes back to that point of just purpose. It would be hard just to not do anything. And albeit at the start of something, when you're taking something on new, whether it's running or you're starting a business, those are the hardest points through the journey, those early days. Once you've sort of mastered your skill or craft or business and you've got to a point where it can either look after itself or you've got muscle memory, so you kind of know how to do certain things, it becomes easier and more enjoyable. And I think it's something I'll always do, I'll always keep progressing at something and wanting to learn. So yeah, I can always, staying active is going back to my point about it as being free medicine and helping mental health. Why wouldn't I do it? Why wouldn't I stay active? Why wouldn't I keep running? Unless there is I physically can't run, then why wouldn't I? So I think for anyone listening, like, stay active. That this is such an amazing thing to be able to do. Running's so easy to do, like it's such easy entry, and I think it's so important for people out there. So it really helps. So yeah, keep progressing, keep going, keep running.
I just want to touch on the Battersea race, mate, because obviously like that was an amazing race for you. And again, I love that caption you put up, like 25-year-old me running X time, and now it's you 10 years later running a better time. Like that is like, that must have felt pretty special crossing that line. And also talk me through that race itself and how it kind of went.
So before I started Pleese Cakes 7 years ago, I signed up to do an Ironman. So I started training quite heavily in running, swimming, and cycling. And I did all the disciplines in separate stages. So I'd do a 112-mile cycle, or I'd do a marathon, or I'd do a half marathon, or whatever to train. And I was about 25 years old, and I ran this half marathon in Reigate. I got a 1:42, and over the last 7 years, obviously fitness hasn't been at the forefront of my focus while growing the business, but I got into running again only recently, really, only towards the end of last year. I was like, in September, August time, I started running again, training with my friend Brendan, who's doing the Ironmans, and it was tough at the start. I did the Richmond half, and it was like it was like 2:02, 2 hours and 2 minutes. I was like, I really struggled around that. I really, really struggled. Then I did the Battersea again in October last year and did it in a 1:51. I was like, okay, that is a bit of time off. I know it's much flatter. It's a lovely flat course, obviously. And I continued training, and I honestly didn't think I'd be able to get down to that 1:42 again. I'm 10 years older. It just in my head, I thought, you can only PB if you're younger, and like just naturally you think, I'm not going to be able to do that again. And then I ran the race. It was a lovely day. The conditions were great. It was a perfect temperature. January the 6th, a little bit cold, but you warm up quickly, don't you? And I just felt good. And I think it goes back to that training, that consistency. I try and run three to four times a week. I always try and do maybe a half marathon on the Sunday and some shorter runs during the week. And that really helped. That consistency, the miles in the tank really helped me on that day, and I felt good. I actually, on the day, because it's 8 laps and 3/4, and I thought the 8th lap was the 3/4 lap.
Okay.
And the last lap, I went second to last lap. I thought it was the last lap. I went for it a little bit, and it blew me out a little bit. And I thought, oh no, I've messed up. And so I had to do the final lap, and I was a little bit blown out by then, but I still got the 1:41, and it was I was really pleased with that. It was first time I'd run that pace and a half, and I think there's with a bit more training and a bit more consistency, I think I can improve on that massively. So it's just a case of just putting in those miles and putting in the training, and yes, let's see where we get to. But yeah, great race. They're always so well run as well. Like that, it's just like seamless. You get there, the village is always great. There's always great offerings, and it's just brilliant events.
We'll finish with this, mate. 2 bits of advice, and I know, like you say, you're never going to want to push running on anybody. You're never going to want to push health and fitness on anybody. But give a piece of advice to somebody listening to this that maybe is thinking about starting a business, and give a piece of advice if somebody's listening to this thinking about maybe putting their trainers on for the first time, going to the gym for the first time, or just getting into kind of health and fitness a little bit more.
Yeah, so on the running side of things, actually, because someone asked me this on social media, and they said, what advice would you give me? And I said, number one, a good pair of running shoes. And that's helped me massively. So just towards the end of last year, I had a half decent pair of running shoes, and I actually ran the Battersea half in them. Blisters, ankle pain, knee pain, invested in a good pair of running shoes, and it made the world of this difference, not only to the time, but just to the actual comfort, the impact on my knees and my ankles, especially getting a little bit older. Really, really important to get a good pair of running shoes. It's definitely worth the investment. And the second bit on running was just get started. Those first initial steps is just get moving. It's going to be maybe challenging at the start, but those first, just that action taking is really key. And that is similar to business, just get started, action taking. Going back to the way I started the business was, I've still got the notepad on my desk or in a file now, because I've exited the unit that we used to have. And it was It was like December the 26th, Boxing Day, and I started writing down these word Pleese cakes and a really basic business plan, like how I'd sell and where I'd sell and what I'd do to market the product. And it was social media and it all handwritten, and I was doodling this word Pleese cakes. The next step I made was to set up the Instagram account and design a logo on Canva, which is a design app.
Yeah.
And I set it up, and then without doing those first really basic steps, I wouldn't be here sitting with you today, right? I wouldn't be here today. And it was those first initial action taking steps that a lot of people just don't do. They're too scared to make that first move. And without that, nothing happens. So in business, just start. Fail fast, learn quickly, and get going. So that'd be my advice.